Where are you going?
Home.
Home where?
2 blocks that way.
You don't look like you belong over there.
The first thing the body camera captured wasn't a crime, it was a question. "Where are you going?" Dr. Terence Avery stopped under a streetlight that made the sidewalk look like a pale strip of stage tape. He had a canvas messenger bag slung across his chest, a stack of essays inside, and a thin coat that did nothing against the wind. "Home," he answered. Officer Blake Hutton angled his flashlight straight into Terence's face anyway. "Home where?" Terence blinked once, slow, controlled, because he knew what light like that really meant. Not visibility. Control. "I live 2 blocks that way," he said, nodding toward the row of condos near the river. Hutton didn't look at the condos. He looked at Terence. "You don't look like you belong over there," he said, and right there, on a quiet campus-adjacent street, the entire case was born. Not from a chase, not from a weapon, from an officer deciding, out loud, that belonging was something Terence had to prove. Months later, when the city quietly signed off on a $1.4 million settlement, they didn't do it because a cop asked a few questions. They did it because those questions became harassment, because the body cam didn't show confusion, it showed certainty, and because one traffic stop, captured on another camera, on another night, would end up exposing a pattern the city couldn't defend. Rewind. To the part that always gets reduced to a clip. Terence Avery wasn't just a man walking, he was a professor, not the kind who lectured like a robot, the kind students remembered years later because he made ideas feel like something you could hold in your hands. He taught political theory and ethics at River State University, a public campus tucked between an old working-class neighborhood and a newer district full of glass buildings and expensive coffee. Terence was 42, soft-spoken, always carrying books, always carrying responsibility. He'd grown up in a small house where his mother kept the lights on by sheer stubbornness, and his father taught him how to keep his voice even when the world didn't deserve it. Terence earned his doctorate the slow way. Scholarships, teaching assistant jobs, late nights with cheap takeout and expensive books. He didn't become a professor for prestige. He became one because he believed knowledge was the closest thing to freedom you could hand someone. And when he finally bought a condo near campus, a modest place with a view of the river and a short walk to his office, he felt like he'd done something rare. He'd built stability, not by luck, by relentless effort. The area around River State had been changing, not subtly, not politely. The old neighborhood still had corner stores and church signs, but the new district had dog spas and rooftop bars. A developer's banner hung on a fence, luxury living coming soon. Students moved through it like tourists. Longtime residents watched it like weather. And some new residents, especially the ones who had arrived with expectations of quiet and safety, treated the streets as if they were private property. They didn't say it outright. They didn't have to. They used other words. Suspicious. Out of place. Doesn't look like he belongs. Words that can summon uniforms. That's the environment Terence walked through every day. He knew which blocks had good lighting. He knew which corners had cameras. He knew which streets got patrolled harder after 9 p.m. He didn't live in fear, he lived in awareness, because awareness is what you learn when you've watched people get treated like threats for existing. On the night of the incident, Terence had stayed late to meet with a student. Not a dramatic meeting, a real one, a student struggling, a scholarship on the line, a life balanced on deadlines. Terence finished, locked his office, and stepped out into the cold. The campus was quiet, but not empty. The library lights glowed. A few students crossed the quad. A custodial cart squeaked in the distance. Terence walked with his hands in his pockets, thinking about grading, thinking about whether he'd said the right things, thinking about dinner. Normal thoughts, the kind that are supposed to protect you from feeling like the world is hunting. Then he heard the slow roll of tires behind him. A patrol car, no lights, just presence. He didn't turn at first. He kept walking. He didn't want to look like he was worried, because worry gets interpreted, and interpretation is dangerous. The car eased alongside him, window down. Officer Hutton's voice came out like a hook. "Hey." Terence slowed. "Yes?" "Where you headed?" Terence kept his voice polite. "Home," he said. Hutton's eyes moved over him, coat, bag, posture, like he was scanning for a reason. "What's in the bag?" Terence paused. "Papers," he said. "My work." Hutton didn't accept it. "You got ID?" Terence nodded. "Sure," he said. "It's in my wallet." "Don't reach," Hutton snapped. Terence froze. The trap set itself. Ask for proof, then forbid the movement that provides proof, then call the pause suspicious. Terence lifted his hands slightly. "Okay," he said calmly. "How would you like me to show it?" Hutton got out of the car. That changed the air, because when an officer leaves the vehicle, the encounter becomes physical even before anyone touches anyone. Hutton approached with a flashlight in one hand. He shined it at Terence's face, then down his body, then into the bag. Terence held still. He could feel his pulse. He could also feel something else, his dignity being treated like it was negotiable. "I asked you a question," Hutton said. "What are you doing out here?" Terence stared. "I'm walking. Home," he repeated. Hutton's jaw tightened. "From where?" "From campus," Terence said. "I teach here." Hutton's expression didn't soften. "Yeah?" he said. "Where's your badge?" Terence blinked. "I don't wear a badge," he said. "I'm a professor." Hutton scoffed. "A professor," he repeated, like the word itself was unbelievable. Terence's voice stayed steady. "Yes," he said. "My office is in Hensley Hall. I can show you my faculty ID." Hutton stepped closer. "You're getting mouthy," he said. Terence felt the shift, not from calm to danger, from inquiry to punishment. "Mouthy is what people call you when you won't shrink." "I'm not mouthy," Terence replied. "I'm answering your questions." Hutton's eyes narrowed. "Turn around," he ordered. Terence froze. "Why?" "Because I said so," Hutton snapped. There it was, the same logic that ends conversations. Not law, not policy, because I said so. Terence took a slow breath. "Officer," he said, measured, "am I being detained?" Hutton leaned in. "You're being investigated," he replied. "Investigated. For walking." Terence felt his jaw tighten. "Investigated for what?" he asked. Hutton's voice rose. "For being suspicious," he said. Suspicious. That word again. Big enough to mean anything. Empty enough to mean nothing. Across the street, a condo lobby door opened and shut. Someone's dog barked. A neighbor's curtain shifted, and the body camera blinked quietly on Hutton's chest. Terence noticed it. He made a decision. He didn't argue the entire history of bias. He narrated facts. "For the record," Terence said calmly, "I am Dr. Terence Avery. I live at Linden Key Condominiums. I am a professor at River State University. I am walking home. I have offered to show ID. You told me not to reach." Hutton flinched. People flinch when you speak. To the record. "Don't talk like that," Hutton snapped. Terence didn't raise his voice. "I'm stating facts," he replied. Hutton's hand drifted toward his cuffs. "Turn around," he repeated. Terence's heart thudded. He could hear it in his ears. "Officer," he said, slow and clear, "I am not resisting, but you do not have lawful cause to put hands on me for walking home." Hutton's eyes hardened. "Keep talking," he said. "See what happens." That's when another patrol car rolled up. Officer Marisol Chen stepped out. Older, more composed. She took in the scene. Terence standing still, hands visible. Hutton's posture tight, and her face tightened like she could already see the paperwork coming. "What's going on?" Chen asked. Hutton spoke fast. "Suspicious male," he said. "Claims he lives here, refusing to comply." Terence's eyebrows lifted. "I'm not refusing," he said. "I'm requesting you tell me what I'm suspected of." Chen looked at Terence. "Sir?" she asked, controlled. "What's your name?" Terence told her. He didn't embellish, he didn't plead, just facts. Chen nodded slightly. "Do you have identification?" "Yes," Terence said. "In my wallet." Chen turned to Hutton. "Let him retrieve it," she said. Hutton bristled. "He could have a weapon," he said. Chen's voice stayed even. "His hands have been visible this entire time," she replied. "Let him retrieve it slowly." Terence reached, slow, deliberate, pulled out his wallet, produced a driver's license, then a faculty ID. Chen read it. Her expression changed, not surprise, confirmation. "Okay," she said. "Dr. Avery." Hutton's jaw clenched. Chen handed the ID back. "You're free to go," she told Terence. Terence didn't move immediately, because freedom after humiliation doesn't feel like freedom. He looked at Hutton. "Officer," he asked quietly, "what exactly made me suspicious?" Hutton didn't answer. He looked away. Chen exhaled. "Have a safe night, sir," she said. Terence nodded. He turned. He walked home, and he felt the street change behind him. Not because it literally changed, because now it had a memory. You could call what happened a short encounter. 10 minutes, maybe 12. No handcuffs, no arrest, no bruises. But that's not how the human body stores humiliation. Humiliation gets stored as vigilance, as tension, as the sudden awareness of every footstep behind you. Terence reached his condo lobby and felt his hands shake slightly as he typed the code. Not fear of criminals, fear of systems, because systems can make you guilty without a reason. Terence didn't post a rant. He did what professors do. He documented. He wrote down the time, the location, the exact phrases. "You don't look like you belong." "Mouthy?" "Because I said so." He requested the body cam. He requested dispatch logs. He asked the university for its campus security incident reports to see whether any call had been made. Because he suspected something, not about crime, about narrative. The city's first response was predictable. They said the officer made contact to check welfare. They said Terence was uncooperative at first. They said the stop was brief and lawful. Those words are designed to shrink harm. Brief, lawful, welfare. But Terence had his own record, and he had something else, a witness. Across the street from where the stop happened, a condo resident named Ruth Alston had a doorbell camera facing the sidewalk. Ruth didn't know Terence personally, but she recognized what she saw. A man standing still, an officer too close, a flashlight too aggressive. Ruth saved the clip, and when she heard about the complaint through the neighborhood association chatter, she emailed it to Terence. Not with a speech, with a sentence. "I don't think this was right," she wrote. That clip didn't have audio, but it had posture, it had distance, it had the moment Hutton's hand went to his cuffs. It had the way Terence never moved toward the officers. It had the way the officers moved toward him. And posture, in court, becomes evidence. Now here's where the story takes a turn. Because Terence's case didn't become a $1.4 million settlement based solely on his stop. It became that because of one traffic stop, not his, the officer's. 3 weeks after Terence's encounter, Officer Hutton pulled over a car on the east side. A broken tail light, a routine stop, the kind that never becomes news. Except this one did, because the driver's phone recorded, because Hutton's body cam recorded, and because Hutton, unaware of how exposed he already was, said something that cracked open the entire pattern. The driver was a young black woman, black, nervous, hands visible. The stop escalated anyway, not to violence, to language. Hutton used the same words. Stop getting smart. You people always want to argue. Then, when the woman asked why she was being ordered out of the car, Hutton said the line that made every lawyer sit up. Because you don't look like you belong behind this wheel. Behind this wheel, the same logic, different setting, the same assumption, different person. And now there was audio, clear, indisputable. When that traffic stop footage surfaced, Terrence's attorney did what good attorneys do. He connected dots. He argued pattern. He argued that Hutton treated black professionalism, whether it was a professor walking home or a driver in a clean car, as suspicious by default. He argued that suspicious wasn't a behavior, it was a bias, and he argued that the city knew or should have known. Discovery made it worse. Internal emails, prior complaints. A supervisor note recommending coaching on tone and escalation. Another complaint describing Hutton as quick to treat questions as defiance. Not enough to fire him. Enough to show the city had warnings. Warnings they didn't act on. The lawsuit that followed wasn't framed as a dramatic accusation. It was framed as a constitutional argument. Unlawful detention, harassment, violation of civil rights, emotional distress, failure to train and supervise, and it included that traffic stop footage as a mirror, not of what happened to Terrence exactly, of how Hutton operated, how he used compliance like a weapon, how he used suspicious like a blanket, how he used because I said so as substitute law. The city tried to defend the walking stop. They argued it was consensual. They argued it was brief. They argued no force was used. Terrence's attorney asked a simple question. If it was consensual, why did the officer threaten cuffs? If it was was consensual, why did he say, "You don't look like you belong"? If it was consensual, why did he call him mouthy for asking the reason for detention? And why, most importantly, did another officer resolve the entire interaction in seconds simply by allowing verification? That question is lethal in court because it exposes the truth here. Verification was available. It was refused. Terrence testified, not theatrically, precisely. He described how he kept his voice calm, how he stated facts, how he offered ID, how he was told not to reach, how the officer's language made him feel like he had to earn the right to walk home. Then he said something that landed in the courtroom like a weight. I have taught generations of students about rights, Terrence said, and that night I felt like my rights were conditional on whether an officer believed I belonged. Conditional. That word has teeth. The city's lawyers understood risk. They understood juries. And they understood what happens when you add footage to a story. A jury doesn't need to be an expert to recognize disrespect. A jury doesn't need a law degree to recognize harassment. A jury only needs to see an officer say, "You don't look like you belong," twice. Once to a professor, once to a driver, then they see pattern, and pattern is expensive. So the city moved towards settlement, quietly. No press conference, no admission, the standard language. Resolving claims without admission of wrongdoing. But the number spoke anyway. $1.4 million. A figure large enough to make a council nervous. Large enough to force policy changes. Large enough to make supervisors finally read the complaint files they'd ignored. The settlement included terms, updated training on pedestrian stops, and the limits of detention without reasonable suspicion. A directive requiring officers to articulate specific, observable behaviors before labeling a person suspicious. Mandatory supervisor review for stops that involve threats of handcuffing without arrest. Body cam audits triggered by language like, "You don't look like you belong," and a requirement that complaints tied to bias indicators received documented follow-up, not because the city discovered morality, because the city discovered liability. Officer Hutton didn't stand up and confess. People like Hutton rarely do. He was reassigned, placed under supervision, removed from certain patrol zones, and in the department's quiet internal language, the case became a training scenario, a phrase departments use when they don't want to say, "We let this happen." Terrence kept teaching. That part matters, because the easiest way for the system to resolve a problem is for the person harmed to disappear. Quit, move, stop walking. Terrence refused, but he changed, not into paranoia, into precision. He started walking routes with better lighting. He started telling his students gently that rights aren't only theory, they're practice, and he started doing something that says everything about what these encounters do. He started noticing where cameras were, because he had learned, again, that the record is what forces reality to stand still long enough to be seen. Near the end of the case, a reporter asked Terrence what hurt the most. They expected him to say the flashlight, the threats, the insult. Terrence paused. Then he said something quieter. "The worst part," he replied, "was realizing he didn't need a reason. He needed a feeling, and his feeling became my problem." That's the danger, not a bad day, a framework where discomfort becomes suspicion, suspicion becomes command, command becomes threat, and a normal walk home becomes a test of whether you're allowed to exist without being questioned. So circle back to the beginning. A streetlight, a professor with a bag of essays, a cop with a flashlight. You don't look like you belong. That sentence is not about geography, it's about permission. Who gets assumed? Who gets questioned? Who has to prove? The city paid $1.4 million, quietly. But the lesson wasn't quiet. It was written into footage, into a traffic stop that revealed a pattern, into policy changes that should have existed before anyone had to sue, and into Terrence's own life, where a simple walk home will never be quite as simple as it used to be. Because that's what harassment does. It doesn't just threaten you in the moment. It follows you. It sits in your shoulders. It changes how you hear tires behind you. It changes how you stand under a streetlight. And yet, Terrence kept walking. Not because he forgot, because he refused to let someone else's certainty steal his right to move through the city he lived in, taught in, and helped shape. The settlement check didn't buy back the feeling of safety. It couldn't. But it did something else. It forced the system to admit, through the only language it reliably understands, that "you don't look like you belong" is not policing. It's prejudice wearing a uniform. And when that prejudice is recorded, the cost isn't only moral, it's financial, it's political, it's legal. And for one city, it was $1.4 million.